It's official. We are in Trade Deadline 2021, the weekend. We all know that things come to a screeching halt officially at 3 p.m. Eastern on Monday. But up until then, it'll be nothing about talk, inside hearings, rumors, speculation, what you like, what you don't like. And today's show will be nothing different. So we're going to bounce all over the place. I got to tell you, there won't be any rhyme or reason for the next hour. We'll go from one name to another team. We'll bounce it all over the place, which isn't really anything different than what I've had to put up with all these shows with Doug Maclean. Getting him to stay on topic or keep his train of thought is always my biggest challenge. And it will be no different here in the next hour. But what the hell? Let's let her rip, and let's go down to Florida, sunny Florida, where just prior to coming on the show, Doug was selling me on, Kippy, you gotta get into pickleball. It was a sales job. It was like he was trying to sell me one of his condos.
Yes, I think it's good for you to get your mind off hockey a little bit. By the way, Drake Caggiula just picked up on waivers by the Buffalo Sabres from the Arizona Coyotes. So obviously that fills a spot if they happen to move Hall as a guy that can play the wing. So interesting. Just thought I'd throw that out. So a little tidbit for you.
Well, listen, you brought us some news right off the bat here.
Yeah, I'm bringing it. Kyle Turris on waivers. Obviously, they've got three different people on waivers there. They've got right today. Well, not Paul Byron, Montreal, Turris, and Clark Bishop in Ottawa are on waivers. So just good. Updating you, keep you in the loop.
I thought for a second I was going to have to tell you that I'm too young for pickleball, or I still have reflexes. So, maybe I need to wait 7 or 10 years for those things to happen to get into pickleball.
I was talking to an agent yesterday, big time agent. And he was telling me that he loves pickleball. And he was in middle of hard negotiations with it for a top player on his team. And he thought, okay, this is where you are. This is where I am on this number, and we're apart. Maybe we should play pickleball, and whoever wins, we go with that number. He doesn't.
Ballsy.
Well, he decided he wouldn't do that. He's very professional. He wouldn't do that. But anyway, he lost the first game 11-0. He lost the second game 11, and he lost the third game 11-5. And he's thinking, "Thank God I didn't throw that contract offer out there to the GM."
I'm sure you do that daily in your building, and you guys play over like the lawn chair.
Better chair at the pool.
Okay, so we're going to see some activity, Mac. There's going to be teams out there that don't want to get into a scenario on Monday. You want to do some house cleaning. The feeling going into this weekend, Mac, is it's a buyer's market here. I talked to one team probably about half an hour ago, and they felt like Lou Lamoriello was the only one willing to give up a first rounder. Others may have gone conditional, but he was the only one. There is a sense right now, if Taylor Hall's at number 2, that Buffalo still is going to have a tough time getting a first rounder.
Well, look, go back to the last show. We said if Lou feels he's close and he believes he's close, he is going to be the guy that's going to jump and go get the guy he wants. I'm not sure he wanted Sajak in this deal, but he ended up getting a pretty solid veteran. Whether he was forced on him or not, I'm not sure on that. But we said Lou would be the first guy. He's proactive. He's always been like that his whole career. And I'll tell you what, I've had trade discussions with him. There's no BS involved. It's, here's the deal. Let's talk. Let's get something done here. He was as straightforward a GM as you would ever talk to when you were making a trade with him?
Well, there's no question that he sees that East Division, and between Washington, Pitt, now the Bruins, couple of strings going right now for the Bruins. Marchand is carrying the Mac on his shoulders. They seem to be still in a position where we can look at that division and, barring any type of catastrophic injury to any of these teams, they should feel like they've got a decent chance to come out of this.
So who's going to be the next GM to jump? Who else? I don't mean as a seller. I mean, who's the next GM that's going to jump in here, because they need to shore up their defense. Solid number second pairing guy. Not a lot of defensemen out there, but we're hearing better names lately. Who's going to be the next guy to jump on a Hall, a Savard, on the bigger guys? Who's the next guy? Boston Bruins have got to do something.
You know what? This is the way I want to do this, okay? We're really going to get into the buyers and the sellers right now. We assume that everybody knows what they're doing going into this weekend. We got to assume that, right, Mac?
Yep.
Okay, so if we started in the North, in the All-Canadian, it's done. Toronto, Edmonton, Winnipeg, and Montreal. So Vancouver, Calgary, Ottawa, natural sellers. Correct?
Correct.
All right. So we'll start from the top. The Toronto Maple Leafs wants and needs.
Well, they're not comfortable with their left wing with Tavares and Nylander.
I've heard, Mac, is Galchenyuk is been awesome. He's great. Look at him. How great are the Toronto Maple Leafs for turning this thing around? Talented every night. We see what everybody envisioned. And yet, I'm going, you want that guy to win 4 rounds for you in a top 6 position? And I say, I'm not comfortable with that.
I heard the same thing about him in Montreal. I heard the same thing about him in Arizona. I heard the same thing about him in Pittsburgh. And now we're hearing it in Toronto. Yeah, he's a short-term guy. He comes in. He's got a little spark. He's got a little life. Maybe he's really desperate to salvage his career. And you know, like somebody mentioned to me the other day, this guy played with some pretty good players in Pittsburgh. Didn't help him. Didn't help him there when he was there, and played with some pretty good players. And, you know, because I had said the other day, he's playing with Tavares and Nylander. That's the best guys he's ever played with. That's not accurate. He's actually played with some pretty good players everywhere he's been, if the truth is known. So that's
Malkin, not a bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's you'd be nervous on that one.
Okay.
And he has played well.
So where's the upgrade?
Spot.
Where's the upgrade for the Toronto Maple Leafs? Is it Nick Foligno?
Well, Nick Foligno is, Columbus, I think, are really comfortable. They can sign Nick Foligno next summer. Toronto would be interested in Nick Foligno, but not to re-sign him, in my opinion. They'd be interested in him as a short-term guy. Nick Foligno's got great character. He's got, 7 goals? He has long, dry spells where he doesn't score, but you're not getting him to be a scorer. You're getting him to be a real solid, hard guy to play against. If you're a little nervous about Joe Thornton at playoff time, you're not sure where Wayne Simmons is going to be with the grind. You know what? He could be a pretty solid guy to slide in for a playoff run. We saw him play unbelievably well last year against Tampa in the playoffs. We've seen him play well against Pittsburgh in the playoffs. He's had a couple of great years against Tampa. Saw him play against the Leafs last year where he played real well. That wouldn't surprise me that Toronto would be there.
The official
and
word,
maybe Boston too.
Yeah, the official word on Foligno is that he has not asked for a trade, but they are working together to come up with a best case scenario for Columbus and Nick Foligno, which suggests to me that he would be in a position to get traded and then come back and resign in Columbus. We don't see that very often, Mac,
No,
though,
but
do we? We talk about
they
it every trade deadline. We talk about it with UFAs.
But we don't see it very often.
And how many times does it really happen?
Not very often, but I could see it with Nick. I could see he's a popular guy there. He loves it there. I could see him wanting to finish his career there. So I think that's why there's a good relationship there. And but I still think Nick's a guy like, Boston have been in watching Columbus a ton. Winnipeg have been in watching Toronto a ton. Those are the two teams that's really seen. Florida have been watching Columbus a ton. So that's Foligno, that's Savard. Those are the two guys they're watching there, those teams.
The one thing with the Leafs as well, and to me, I'm watching Joe Thornton, who had a terrific start, was able to accumulate some offense and some points, Mac. But I'm watching in these last week and a half, 2 weeks, and like the level of energy, the skating, he's having a tough time out there.
But Nick, you ramp it up 50% as to what it's going to be at playoff time from the regular season. That's why if they're a little bit nervous on him, and I mean, Simmons has been really good. He's been a good pickup. I'm not sure about him at playoff time when the speed and is ramp. There's no question the try is going to be there. The try will definitely be there.
Yeah.
But I mean, and he's a little bit injury prone. I mean, you've got to be careful. You lose your depth real fast.
I know. And this is a challenge a little bit for Sheldon Keefe, who doesn't have a ton of experience. But, if Joe Thornton is sitting on the bench here and he wants to play, Wayne Simmons wants to play.
Oh,
and
big time.
If you're in a position now where if Galchenyuk is your guy and he's locked in with Tavares and Nylander when he gets healthier back in the lineup, you're going to have to manage those egos a little bit if you're Sheldon Keefe. It's not an easy thing to do, is it, Mac?
Well, not with guys that are Hall of Fame, especially a guy that's going to be a Hall of Famer. It's really intimidating. There's no doubt about that. But I mean, Sheldon and Dubas have got to win. Do they have to win the Stanley Cup? No. But they've got to do some damage at playoff time. Enough is enough here. Not Sheldon Keefe so much. The pressure is not on Sheldon. It's his second playoff. But for Kyle and Shanny, this is a critical playoff year. They've got to make sure. And that's why I continually say their blue line is not deep enough for a 4-round playoff series. I'm telling you, it's not deep enough. After the Bogosian, where do you go? And Dermott, where do you go as your next guys that are going to play in your blue line for you? This defense is going to be battered and bruised as they go through a playoff, and you've got to have more. In my opinion, that is a priority for them. Obviously, the left wing spot, like you talked about, but they need a defenseman too. And I've been saying it for a month. I really like the way the blue line's played. Not a knock on the way the blue line's played. It's a question of depth, and you cannot bring up guys with 2 and 3 and 5 games experience to play for you at playoff time, or you're going to be in big trouble.
It almost seems as if the masses now are more focused on their goalie situation. You're one of the few people that have put a real strong emphasis on the Leafs needing more on the blue line. What I hear now with their goaltending situation is they're looking at other options here, Mac. But is there a huge concern about Frederik Andersen, his health, and then ultimately, putting too much on Jack Campbell? And Jack, he looks vulnerable sometimes when he plays, and we know he's battled some injuries already, but is he ready for a workload if in fact, Freddie can't get back to where he was? And where is Toronto going into this weekend on their goalies?
Well, I mean, look, if we saw when Hutchison played last year in Colorado, what happened? I mean, you can't go there.
Listen,
you can't
go there.
You cannot go there. So the question is, they've got to know inside out. Freddie, they keeping him out longer so that they know he's 100%. Obviously, it's been a nagging injury that's bothered him for a while. Obviously, he probably played with it a little bit at the end before he went out. Jack has had some problems where he was out, a month? And Jack Campbell, I mean, he sets a franchise record, 10 wins in a row. I mean, the guy has been phenomenal for them. But
don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if you're a Toronto Maple Leaf fan that you start hearing the name maybe Dave Big Save Riddick out of Calgary.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
That would make a little bit of sense.
You've got to have a guy that's played a number of games, that's played in the playoff, and be ready to go. And Riddick, look, he has played. He's got some decent playoff experience. He's a guy that can come in and give you a big performance. He's a battler in the net. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. But I mean, how much can they do here? They really feel they need a left winger. I think they need a defenseman really bad. And goaltending is nervous. You're a little nervous.
Okay, let's push it out. We'll stay in the East here, and we'll discuss the Montreal Canadiens, Mac. And they lose to Winnipeg. What was billed as a strength of the Montreal Canadiens early in the season now is not quite looking the way I'm sure Montreal Canadian fans envisioned going into the last month here. And that is the blue line with, Petrie, Weber, Edmondson, Kulak, Victor Mete cannot get into any good books, whether or not Claude Julien's or Ducharme is behind the bench. And it looks slow, Mac. Petrie was on a house on fire, I think, in the last 10 games. He's really slowed down. It looks like a slower blue line here.
Well, and Mete and Romanov, I mean, they didn't survive the game. They were broke up last night. That's a concern, that pair right there in the 5-6 hole. Romanov's been up and down, but I mean, that 5-6 right now would be a concern. Kulak, puck mover, but again, you're not 100% certain. I mean, I guess he's been pretty good, but you're right. It's a little bit slower blue line than we thought it was.
I suppose you
and I keep hearing, am I way out in left field in this, that Savard, we say Florida, but I still think Montreal have talked about Savard. I really believe that.
I believe right now, Mac, that the best price out there for anyone is David Savard. I think he's got the chance to bring the biggest return for anybody.
And we started talking about David Savard 6 weeks ago on this show, that he was going to be the guy because you came out and said he wasn't going to re-sign in Columbus. They've got to focus on more
months ago.
Yeah. We've been talking about it, and now he is number one on every poll I see as a guy that is in demand. Well, he's had a pretty good year, but people have watched what he's done in the playoffs against Tampa, against Toronto, against good offensive teams, what he's done. So I can't believe that Montreal are not talking about this guy. And Winnipeg have got to be. And Florida have got to be. And maybe Tampa are. I mean, there's got to be a strong market for him right now. Well, we know there is, because people have been in watching Columbus. Boston have been watching Columbus a lot too. Why would Boston be watching Columbus?
Hold on.
They need help in their back end. They need help in their back end.
One quick thought, Mac. One quick thought on Montreal is that if I told you at the beginning of the season, down the stretch, Corey Perry would be playing 20 minutes for the Montreal Canadiens, what would you have said to me?
I would have said you're nuts.
Over 20 minutes last night. And Gallagher's out. We know that Gallagher's out and he's lost. But it's still shocking, Mac, that 35 at his point of his career. But full marks for him, man. He's brought so much to them.
He is. This is a guy. I remember watching him in London, and I remember at the draft table. I remember us saying, we really think we got a chance to get Perry with our first pick in the second round. We really think we got a chance to get him because everybody questioned his skating. And I don't know if he went 25th. And I remember looking at Don Boyd going, "Are you kidding? Are you kidding?" We also were getting Weber in the third round, and he went in the second round. I remember that conversation at the draft table too. But that's the way it goes. But Corey Perry has had an amazing career. I mean, come on, Hart Trophy winner.
And
what has he done?
And another great season in this shortened pandemic year. I'm
He
Nick Kypreos. We got Doug Maclean.
Character.
We are here on trade weekend, and hey, Jordan, just to make it clear here, while we got everybody.
Yes, sir.
The plan is Monday on trade deadline day that Mac and I will be here live, of course, but the thought is maybe pushing the show back 1 hour. I know it's called Real Kyper at noon. You don't have to remind me that. But the sense is that maybe we'll go in an hour later, start at 1 p.m. Eastern, and take it right through the trade deadline at 3 p.m. Eastern. How does that sound?
Jill.
Ask Jill for permission.
We got to move pickleball back on Monday an hour.
to be honest, we get a lot of complaints when we start at like 12:02. Guys,
12:02.
What do you mean? Is this Real Kyper at 12:02? What's going on?
But this time we're giving notice. We're letting them all know.
Yeah, that's right, honey. We have to move it back.
You've got all weekend. Everybody watching and listening, you got all weekend to make your adjustments. So Mac and I will come on a little later on Monday and then take you right through for instant analysis and reaction, and maybe a couple of tidbits here and there, which we sometimes get.
Yeah, it'll be really exciting. We'll be live.
Is there any chance you're going to bring in a real insider?
Well, lots of surprises. Lots of surprises.
What I will say,
a guy that thinks he's a real insider, we may bring on.
We are gonna dig in deep to our friend Bucket, and we'll have a few people involved. Let's just say that.
It's going to be a really free-flowing show. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to be hanging out, checking the news. We'll be scrolling Twitter. We'll be checking out all the latest deals. Really just want to make it a fun place to hang out and stay up to date on all of the recent transactions. So if you're expecting the button-up stylings of the former Hockey Central at Noon people, I don't know. But we're going to have some fun, though.
All right, man. You're good at selling, Jordan. That was really cool. I think I may stick. I may watch.
Doug, if you need help with Jill and your schedule, just let me know.
Oh my God, she's not happy.
Hey Mac, just one thought.
I know it's not my fault. They want me for 2 hours. I can't help it.
Just one thought on Corey Perry. Corey Perry, I won't suggest that he begged the Toronto Maple Leafs. I won't go that far, but his first choice was to sign with the Leafs, and the Leafs went right out of the gate, and they got Wayne Simmons at 1.5. And I suppose Simmons is 3 years younger, if I'm not mistaken, from Corey Perry.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have gone Corey Perry over Wayne Simmons and saved the $800,000. And that's not. I don't mean to be disrespectful to Wayne Simmons. He's had a good year. He's been a positive impact on the Leafs, and he'll continue to maybe score a big goal here and there and provide some pushback. But I look at Corey Perry right now, and if it was me, I probably would have gone with the more experience in the Stanley Cup pedigree.
And a guy that has had a history of scoring big goals in his entire career, big goals, and a guy that can play with real good people.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, look, I'm with you. Simmons has been. The difference was Kyle was focused on guys that would make them harder to play against. But Corey Perry makes you harder to play against too with his antics and
we
the way
saw it with Dallas. We saw it.
Damn right, and he makes his teammates play harder too.
There was great value out of Dallas from Corey Perry, and It's just interesting that Kyle Dubas waived on Corey Perry and spent a little bit more money on Wayne Simmons. And, all things being equal, I would have taken the $800,000 savings. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So just one tidbit on that. Edmonton Oilers, can they just play the Ottawa Senators for the rest of the season and win the Stanley Cup? 9-0, Mac. 9.
No, it's unbelievable.
And it's always the same story. If you went and watched all 9 games, they would look exactly the same. Draisaitl, McDavid, and I guess, Nurse and Barry. But outside of that, going into this weekend, secondary scoring, we're like a broken record when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers on that.
Well, we were really hard on their goaltending, or I should say their defense to start the season. Really hard on their defense, and it's played really well. The question with the Oilers now is, what about their second line? Where's their second line? Is it good enough to win at playoff time?
Last week, Mac, I talked about Taylor Hall, and it's funny now because everybody's talking about him wanting an extension on the deal. And we talked about that, if Edmonton would be in a scenario to do that. It's still debatable whether or not they look at Taylor Hall seriously. But Mac, how can they not, with their lack of production outside of the big boys?
So their second line right now is Cahoon, Gaetan Haas, and Yakamoto. That's their second line.
Yeah.
That's not
not conference final second line.
That and look, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins wasn't in the lineup, but that was their second line the last couple of games. So people are saying, well, there's no way Hall's in the mix there. Well, should he be in the mix when you look at that second line?
It's still challenging to find guys that especially in the UFA, that would go to Edmonton. And I know Connor McDavid, everybody would love to play with him, but it's still challenging when you got a guy like Taylor Hall, and if he's willing to go there and sign an extension, and I don't know what that number could look like. We can only imagine, Mac. There's no question that his stock's dropped, and no longer will he be considered an $8-9 million player like he was a few years ago, coming off an MVP. But there's value there. He can't be as bad as 2 goals in a season.
Is Ken Holland going to pay a first-round pick for him? I talked to an insider yesterday. He said, no way.
So let's assume that it's
Kenny Holland
not
says,
that
don't
expensive.
believe the rumors.
Let's assume it's not that expensive.
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends. It depends where it goes here with Palmieri out of the mix. If Toronto aren't in the mix on Hull, which I've got to believe they're still waiting. Toronto has got to be sitting there with a reasonable offer for him, but it's not going to be a first round pick.
If the
can
bottom
Edmonton
falls
offer
out,
a first round pick?
For the Leafs to get involved in Hull, the bottom's got to fall out, and I'm not sure that the Oilers aren't too far behind that.
I agree. So I don't see Kenny or Kyle Dubas even contemplating a first round pick.
So we assume like a few teams out there, Oilers need some depth up the middle. We talked about buyers and sellers. Philly's on the outside looking in. I'm hearing that they've shopped hard Nolan Patrick.
That's a new name.
Obviously, the injuries have taken their toll. But as a buyer, I think you still would like the upside. But health is a huge concern on how healthy this guy can stay. So I would imagine to get Nolan Patrick, if you're the Edmonton Oilers, it wouldn't be that expensive.
And he would, do you go Patrick or do you go Lawton? If you're the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, look, when Nugent Hopkins comes back, They need a second line. I can't for a minute believe they're going to be able to play Draisaitl and McDavid together at playoff time with the way people shut down people. They're going to have to go back. They're going to use them every once in a while, but they're going to have to go back to Draisaitl with Nugent Hopkins on the second line. So that opens up who's going to play in their top six. Well, you got Patrick, you just mentioned. Lawton's out there. Hall's out there. I mean, Foligno to me is not a top six. Foligno's a top 9 guy. He's a third line guy for me.
So on a championship team.
He's a third line guy.
But is this a championship lineup? So
no.
Okay. Winnipeg. Do we put them as the odds-on favorite for David Savard? I do. And Florida, they got to be running neck and neck between Winnipeg and Florida.
I got to believe those are the two teams. Who has more to give up? Who can shop their prospect list better, Florida or Winnipeg? Winnipeg's got two great young defensemen.
Yeah,
maybe 3 young
right
defensemen.
Now are off the table.
Yeah, exactly. So they've got, Chevy is so patient. I hope he's not overly patient that he misses out on this, because as we said in the last couple of shows, they cannot win the North Division without fixing that blue line, in my opinion. Now, Hellebuck last night stands on his head, 40-some saves again. Yeah, if he does it, they'll win. But to me, they need help on their back end. And, it's been fine, but they need it to be better to compete. And Winnipeg's their only goal. They don't need any help in their forward group as far as I'm concerned. None. That's the only focus, is that right spot defenseman.
All right, let's keep moving out west when it comes to sellers, because we feel like the Vancouver Canucks are in a position now, if you're Jim Benning, to just start unloading and alleviating the salary cap. Yet he goes the opposite way and signs Tanner Pearson back to a $3.25 million contract over 3 years. And the only thing I ask you is,
Vancouver, you mean?
Vancouver, sorry.
Yeah.
I ask you is, where's the race to get this done in a flat cap era? And it's not that I don't like Tanner Pearson, but
what's the rush?
Am I really sure what I'm getting for $3.25 million again in a flat cap era where I can't make any mistakes? I just talked about loving $800,000 difference on having Corey Perry instead of Wayne Simmons. And why wouldn't you take a crack at maybe finding a way to get this done maybe a little cheaper?
And like you said, what's the panic here? Well, the panic is he can walk for unrestricted free agent. I mean, he stalled on Toffoli, lost him. I mean, he lost 5 or 6 regulars out of his lineup last year, and it really in the end cost them big time. They weren't good enough this year. COVID or not, I thought they would be better. I thought Holtby would be better. Demko took a big step, was good. The loss of Tanev was too much. Even the loss of Sketcher was too much for them on their back end. I mean, their depth wasn't as good. And so he got snake bitten. So maybe that's why he jumped here a little bit. But I'm with you. I don't know what the panic is. Joe Resnick stayed strong on a $3.25 million deal, 3-year deal. Good job by Joe.
I'm not. I don't know how Vancouver Canucks are going to feel about this next comment I make, but when Jim Benning's committing $10 million to Tanner Pearson, it doesn't appear to me like he's going anywhere anytime soon here. He's going to be the general manager next year.
That's before he's got his 2 studs done. He committed that before he had Pettersson and the kid on the blue line done. Quinn Hughes. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. But that has to be a good sign for Jim Benning's future, that your owner would allow you your owner would rubber stamp a deal of this magnitude.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jim Benning appears he's not going anywhere, and yet Travis Green has not signed a contract that I know of. And, they could be, well, you think they're going to come back and play, that the league desperately wants them to go back and play. But, I mean, their season could be over and their coach not signed. So all of a sudden he basically becomes a free agent. And we know there's going to be a bunch of coaches fired here. There's going to be a bunch of coaches fired.
Sounds like another topic for another day.
Yeah, sure. Anyway, keep going. You're hosting. I was going to mention the big defenseman of Dallas.
I don't want to cut you guys off, but Bobby Ryan is out for the remainder of the season. Was just reported about 13 minutes ago from Frank Cervalli.
I don't know if he had any type of value, but he seemed to have been a good, steady guy. Like we've talked about, many of the veterans that had still a little bit of shelf life in Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, Kenny, I've got to believe Stevie Y. There's 2 or 3 teams that are capable of parking some money to make some good deals with which is what we saw Chicago do in their deal with Florida. Take Conley's money from Florida to free up space for Florida to do something to try to do some damage in the playoffs. Detroit's a team that's capable of that. San Jose is a team that's capable of that. But those
LA.
are deals. LA, we're going to see some of those deals. I got to believe 3-way deals for team to be able to alleviate cap space. The big defenseman in Dallas. We forgot.
Alexiak.
We talked Savard.
Okay, so if we've got Savard at the top of the list, Josh Manson has another year left on his deal. I think a little over 4, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Then you mentioned Alexiak, UFA in Dallas, but that would mean that Dallas would have to wave the white flag.
And I mean, they're 7 points out. They got games in hand, but they're in tough right now.
Doesn't appear like Tyler Seguin's anywhere near saving them right now. So
right. Yeah.
It doesn't. That's a tough pill to swallow for Dallas, that organization. And they do have fans coming in, Mac. They got to think about selling for next season. That's a tough one.
But is that not a guy that would be is that not a guy that you would say
I'd welcome him all day long?
Oh, in a heartbeat. If Toronto could pick a guy like him up at a reasonable price for a rental, all day long. But even other teams that are out there, we're talking Savard. This guy was pretty impressive last year in that playoff run. So if he's available, I've got to believe people are kicking tires big time on him.
Well, if we're gonna go from sellers to buyers, would Nashville not be at the top of our list? David Poyle's really screwed himself, if you ask me, Mac. Like, he's been around forever. Forever, it seems like he's been a buyer in this trade deadline world. And it looked like he was really going to be this seller for the first time. And we're going to see a part of his general manager duties that were unfamiliar to us. And I wanted to see what kind of value he's going to pick up for guys like Granlund, Ekholm. Yet
Ellis
was mentioned, but he can't do squat right now. He can't.
No, he's got to try to win. He's got to try to do some damage. And if the season finishes today, who's he playing in the first round?
Well, that's when it gets a little tricky here.
That's when it gets really tricky.
And it's like, what are we doing here? That's what it is. It's come on. What are we playing for? What are we beating our heads over for? And that's where you sit there and go, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be the $1 million question.
What do you want?
For him.
I'm watching Carolina, Mac, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. And I know there's flaws that you could pick apart, and Tampa today, we believe this. We did our show, a month ago, saying this is still the team to beat, but they want another defenseman. You assume that Carolina wouldn't be overly comfortable with the likes of Jake Bean back there or Hayden Fleury, and they'd like to kind of beef it up a little bit. Hamilton's carrying them. Slavin's carrying them. Brett Pesce, but they need more depth. But for Nashville now to go up against Carolina or Tampa and think they have a chance, those teams have to put it on a platter.
Yeah.
Surround it with lobster, shrimp, a cocktail sauce, and then hand it to Nashville.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. I agree 100% with you. The other name, you mentioned Josh Manson. That comes with a huge price for me. The other guy is Raquel, who's in Anaheim, whose name has been out there. I mean, Raquel is a guy that could fit in and help a lot of teams as well.
Well,
I mean, that's a name that we've got to keep an eye on.
That's a name that comes up for me in Montreal with Gallagher's money coming off the books, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, would Toronto look at a Raquel, or what's that price point versus a Hall price? He's a guy that can fit in and play a really responsible role, and chip in offensively.
Yeah.
So
I'm a believer of more pushback
type of guy.
Foligno, Sam Bennett in Toronto.
Yeah.
I see more value in pushback than I do another guy that may score a goal.
Yeah, I agree with that. The pushback thing, it was on Kyle's mind all summer. I'm sure when they go back and look at their playoff games last year against Columbus, they better be prepared for a war in the first round. No matter who they play, it's all right to talk regular season, but it is going to be a war with less power plays.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
now, if we were to handicap today going into the weekend, and you brought this up, but I kind of pulled you off, but I'm pulling you right back on the Boston Bruins. Would we not have Boston as the odds-on favor for Taylor Hall right now with Palmieri gone?
To me, I don't know, Sweeney has struggled to fill that. Craig Smith was his big acquisition with, their back end with Chara, Krug out. They put kids in to take their place. But up front, Craig Smith was the only guy they brought in. They thought he could be a 30-goal scorer. For whatever reason, the bottom's fallen out on DeBrusk, who I happen to like. I watched them last night, Nick. Their fourth forward in ice time last night. You go Marchand, Bergeron, and Pasternak. Who was number 4 on their team in ice time last night?
Corrali.
Yeah. Sean Corrali was their fourth, and Sean's got 2 goals and a few, but he starts every face-off in the defensive zone. He goes head-to-head against it, but he was 4th in forward ice time last night. So, to me...
where's Krejci? Where's Where's Charlie
right?
Coyle?
They were behind him in ice time. So are you going to go into the playoffs without a second line that can score you some goals? Ritchie has chipped in. Coyle has chipped in. But to me, they're third line guys. That's where the second line is all like it used to be DeBrusk, Krejci, and whoever on the third line that would fill in there, It's not there right now, and they're going to have a tough first round. So I've got to believe you're 100% right. I've got to believe they're in on Hall. Are they in on Hoffman? Are they in on Raquel? They've got to be in on somebody. They've got to be at the top of the list.
And that's not shying away from the blue line help they need as well, Mac.
Yeah, they're nervous about the back end as well, in my opinion. Yeah, and they got a kid playing goal. He had a second career win last night. So they've got some real questions there. And look, Jerry Jacobs, I know he's not the owner anymore. He gave it to his kids and whatever. He's still the owner. And he still gets pissed off when they lose.
Well, and they spend money unnecessarily. Right?
Yeah, right.
Is Dumba safe in Minnesota this weekend? You got to think with all their success, Mac, that he's not going anywhere. I know there's an expansion issue, but
that's a big issue.
You can clean that up though in the summer, Mac. Can you not trade his rights and then have them? Is that not possible?
Well, that's the big question mark. Will Suter work with them to waive his no move? I can't believe he would, because they would expose him ahead of Dumba. In my opinion, that's what they would do. But I can't see him waiving his no move to go to Seattle. I can't believe that.
No.
I don't think, but I may be wrong on that. Maybe. I mean, I think Suter's bought in and has been really valuable there this year. I know, he didn't get the captaincy. Did that bother him? I don't know, but he seems to have bought in because he's played pretty well. But I can't believe he's going to waive his no move to go to Seattle to start with an expansion team. I don't know, but they'll lose Dumba if they don't do something like you said. But they're not trading him this weekend. No way. They want to win. They want to go. They want to play Vegas in the first round, and they think they can beat Vegas in the first round. And we'll have to do therapy for our friend Millard if that happens. And we'll hook Lawless into the same session.
Mac, they believe that they can be the Dallas Stars in this second version of a pandemic season.
You want to believe it. And they feel really comfortable playing Vegas. And Vegas bother a lot of teams when they play them. They don't bother the Minnesota Wild. They are not fazed by the Vegas Golden Knights. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. Would I pick Minnie to beat them? Probably not, but it's going to be a hell of a series. So I don't see Dumba going anywhere.
Colorado's goaltending scenario. We've talked about it since the moment I think Grubauer wasn't playing in the bubble. Francouz is lost for the season. They went and got Janssen, I think, off waivers. That's not an answer. They're shopping this weekend, Mac. I mentioned David Riddick, but where else can they go here? Bernier, can that get revisited?
Well, he just come back off the IR. How serious an injury did he have? I think Bernier is definitely a guy that they would consider. But, I mean, there's some pretty decent names out there. Dubnik's out there. Riddick's out there. Drieger's out there. Can they get somebody freed up out of Carolina? That's a question mark. They got the three guys playing pretty well. I think you'll see Colorado make a move on one of those guys.
There's just...
They can't take a chance of not getting a guy.
It's one thing to think that you have insurance, but you as a general manager, Mac, you truly have to envision that if your big guy goes down, that somebody's capable of hitting a level that can win a series. And I'm not sure how many guys are out there that you can really feel that way.
No, and you know what happens if you lose your number one guy and you don't have a competent guy to step in that the team believe.
There's just no way Colorado does it 2 years in a row. There's just no way.
Not a chance. And you let your team down, the heat you take. I mean, we saw Hudobin do it, but Hudobin was a veteran guy that was terrific in Boston as a backup. He's been terrific. He's carried the mail before to a degree. You cannot go into the playoffs when you're expected to win a Stanley Cup without that short up. They're going to do something for sure. Unless I don't know anything about Johansson. I saw him play in Buffalo a couple of times. He looked okay.
But he lost. No, they're not going down that path. Not a snowball's chance, as you like to say, in hell.
Yeah, I don't see it.
All right. I think we beat it up pretty good. St. Louis is one of those teams, Mac, where Doug Armstrong could look like he's selling when he's really buying. I think that's the type of guy he was. I heard St. Louis was in on Taylor Hall about a week and a half ago. I don't know where they are today, but they were definitely kicking tires on Taylor Hall. Hoffman's been a disaster.
Hoffman's, what's he got? 9 goals. He's on pace for like 20 goals.
Is he going to be a quick alternative if Boston gets shut out on Taylor Hall? Could they go to Hoffman?
I could see that happening. The one thing is he smart enough to play with Krejci? Is he smart enough to play with Krejci? Because the guy, whether you like him or not, maybe he doesn't do everything you want him to do, but he's on pace. As bad as he's been, he's on pace for 21 goals. Hall's on pace for 3.
So what you're saying is Hoffman's a bigger threat than Patrick Laine is in Columbus. That's what you're telling me.
Don't go there. For
1 goal in 20 games, Mac.
That is just unfriggin' believable. Mac, that has happened. And did you listen to Paul Maurice talk yesterday? Paul Maurice
specifically on what?
He raved about Dubois, what he is for them, what he's going to be. And I phoned my good friend Jeff Rimmer this morning, and I said, Jeff,
you couldn't go a whole show without mentioning Jeff Rimmer.
Well, because I phoned him. I said, Jeff, I happened to see your jerseys with that 20th year, the celebration, and I said, it's so disappointing in your 20th year of a great celebratory season that you're going to miss the playoffs and you're going to be a seller. That's really disappointing. And I said, after your illustrious career, to have to, as as he sort of fades into the, sunset, not now, he wants to work till he's 80, but, disappointing finish. And Torts, what was it? Game 3 or game 4, he benched Laine?
Oh gosh.
Didn't Laine have 2 goals?
I don't think he unpacked. I don't think he completely unpacked before he was benched.
And he yelled at an assistant coach. Oh my God. He yelled at an assistant coach. I used to yell at assistant coaches when I was the coach.
Listen, I don't want to sit here and beat up on Columbus.
No, I don't either. Because I'm very disappointed.
But it's still it still should be asked, at least on my show because I'm the host. Is there another organization, and I include Buffalo, where I include Buffalo because Buffalo's a mess too, that there is so much uncertainty from player 1 to player 20. Like, you don't know what this team is going to look like in 2 years. You can't guarantee that Seth Jones is going to be there. Werenski, the goalies, the coach, Patrick Laine. Like, at least with Jack Eichel, there's an asset there and it's locked in. So if he's walking out the door in 3 or 4 years, we're getting something back.
Yeah.
Columbus is, how do you sell that long term? Forget about finishing this season or going into next season, but I'm a season ticket subscriber and I want to make a commitment here. How do I do that knowing what I'm buying in 2 or 3 years?
Well, and that's what's disappointing, because coming off that great win over Toronto in the buy-in round, where it was a big, big win for the Blue Jackets and the history of their team, the way they beat a good Toronto team, the way they battled a Tampa team right to the nth degree to in the first round. And the excitement this year was they were going to be a good team. They were going to be a good team in their 20th year. And that's what's so disappointing. But the Laine debacle, it starts training camp. Dubois wants out, and then it goes from there. And I'm sorry. I think back to the Laine whatever game it was, he got benched. I'm thinking, and we talked about it till we were blue in the face. Are you shitting me? They just benched Laine. And there it goes. It started. And I don't know where it ends, but I know one thing. I've been blamed a lot for things in Columbus. I haven't been there in 12 years, but I've been blamed for a lot.
Listen,
they can't blame this one on me.
We knew months ago that Columbus was not going to sign David Savard. Okay? We knew that months ago. And the feeling is we're not committing $5 million. We're going to focus on Seth Jones and Werenski the next couple of years. Now, I ask you as a general manager, you've been through this on different levels. If you're Yarmo and the ownership group with less than 2 years now to UFA for a guy like Seth Jones, please tell me you would have some real strong indication that this guy wants to stay and he wants to sign long-term.
100%.
Because if you don't, and as one general manager put it to me the other day, if you aren't sure and you have a feeling that these guys want out, and all I've heard, Mac, for the last few days is Werenski's goal is to go back to Michigan. That someone told me, mark my words, that guy's going to be a Red Wing. So we all hear this. It's all speculation. I'm not reporting anything, so don't go running around saying I said that. I'm just telling you, as you like to say, Mac, we're telling you what we hear from people that are probably a lot closer than maybe, the guy at serves coffee at Tim Hortons. That's all.
Yeah.
But as a general manager, if you don't have that feeling that Seth Jones is not long day, a general manager told me, you got to start making calls like yesterday to find out what you can do, how you can put a team ahead of this and maximize the value for them. How do you respond to that?
Well, I have got to believe that I would think there's been some discussions to try to get this guy signed on a long-term deal. And I think Seth Jones, I really believe the little bit I know about Seth Jones from people that have had him in junior and people that know him is that you could work him to re-sign in Columbus. I really think that. So why would you not already be approaching him and saying, Seth, we want you to retire as a Blue Jacket? He would be my best friggin' friend right now.
But it might not be enough.
Well, I don't know if it's enough.
You taking him for a ride in your Porsche or your RV might not be enough.
No, it may not be enough, but at least I would know. At least you would know. So what is it going to take to make this guy a long-term Blue Jacket? And you can start in July.
Have you gone through scenarios over your career where you got nervous on a guy you thought you might keep, he didn't, you broke your heart?
I did, but we weren't at that stage as a franchise when I was there. You know, it was still an expansion franchise when I was there for the most part. It wasn't close like that about worrying about losing guys because we didn't have the big stars. We had Nash locked up. We had the guys we needed locked up, but
it does happen though, and Islander fans went through it with Tavares.
100%.
Where 100%. And where was Lou on that? Did Lou have some idea that he was not coming back, or else I think a guy like Lou would have said, "God, I would have got something for him at the trade deadline if I knew this all over again."
Well, you can the Seth Jones thing is going to come to a head July 1st because they're going to be they've got 1 year to get him done, and also Merzlikins, Korpisalo, Werenski. I mean, Laine. I mean, this is
if I'm not mistaken,
Yarmo has had a tough year. I feel for him. He's had a tough year, and it's only trending that it could get even worse.
I know typically in the past it's been 1 calendar year to sign an extension, but I think in this pandemic, Mac, they can sign him earlier.
Well, I don't know what that is, how that's affected, but whenever they can sign him to get this franchise moving in the right direction.
Agents are pretty good and players are pretty good at saying and doing the right things when they have no intention of coming back.
I know. But you got to get a pen to paper. It can't linger into next season, Nick. If this lingers into next season, it's going to be really ugly.
Listen, we got a big Monday, Mac.
Oh
huge.
My God.
No, as you like to say, huge weekend coming up, but a even bigger Monday where we're going to go 1 p.m. Eastern to 3 p.m. Eastern with Mac, me, and we're going to find an insider. Don't
bring in a half-assed insider, Nick.
Way more knowledge than you.
I need somebody that knows something. Do not bring in a half-assed insider.
I'll look. But I'm excited for it. We'll take you.
Do I have veto power over who you bring in?
Yeah, except if we get that Ron Serafini guy. If I'd like to bring him in, see what happens to your face.
Oh, did you see the guy that sent out the hockey DB on Ron Serafini?
Yeah, that made my day, to be honest. He looked straight out of the 70s. I loved it.
I looked at him. He even scared me when I looked at him on the hockey DB.
Wow. You look great now. Thank goodness.
Okay.
So don't
1 o'clock.
Don't lose all your energy on the weekend.
1 o'clock on Monday. I'll be there.
Stay home. Stay off the pickleball court.
Can I have a third consecutive low 80 score on Sunday?
Do I need to negotiate with Jill to get you to work an extra hour on Monday, or are we okay?
Good. I already discussed it earlier in the show. But listen, I got to warm up Saturday night. I'm playing 9 holes at Deer Creek. Saturday night at 4. I've got my match Sunday morning at 7:15. There's a lot of pressure. My handicap's dropped to 15. I sent a picture of my handicap screensaver to Jim Clark and Paul M. Skierman and PI. They weren't impressed.
Are you listen, I'm shutting this thing off in about 2 minutes. I'm going to watch the Masters. Are you a guy? Can you get tips off of watching the Masters? Does that inspire you to go out there?
It has really inspired me to watch golf this year. I mean, I watch the LPGA once in a while because they're all
terrific athletes.
They're all terrific, and I've been really zeroing in on their bunker play. Bunker play is an area
up and down. Sand saves, Mac. We'll set you free on your day.
Okay, man.
Jordan, what's the update on give us the latest on the Masters before we leave?
So I've been watching the Masters during the whole show on my iPad over here. I'm an addict.
Jordan,
hey,
pay attention to us. We're more important.
Only once per year. The leader is Weisberg right now at -4, Leishman -4, Rose -4. Rose was -7 to start the day, and he imploded.
Double.
I think he had a triple bogey. All on the green, yeah. So, and then Tony Finau is making a nice run. He's -3 through 9 today.
Oh, I'd love to see him win. This guy's had more top 5 finishes, but can't seem to.
He's a sweetheart of a guy too.
Oh, he's good.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I'm excited. I entered a couple of pools, so I was cursing Tommy Fleetwood there until he got his ace yesterday. That was pretty good. Okay, we're going to let everybody go. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope your favorite team pulls the trigger on something that you like. We're going to be back here on Monday with Doug Maclean, Jordan, Joe maybe might have an appearance, and maybe a few more talking heads. You'll have to wait and see. But thank you for sticking with us all week, liking us, and those subscriptions. If you're watching for the first time, hit the subscribe button. Easier for me to do than say, apparently. And we will be back here on Monday for our trade deadline special. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe.